Hello there, Board Game Maniacs, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Painting with the Maniac. It's been a while since we did this, but I've been getting a lot of comments and positive feedback from all of the Night of the Living Dead stuff from Cool Mini or Not. The game has been out just recently because I posted because I'm painting the walkers and pretty much all the ghouls, and I'm getting really good feedback into it. So I figured for Painting with the Maniac, I'm going to start doing some painting for this on camera. What we're going to do for this month, because it is the theme month for Night of the Living Dead, I'm hoping to get at least 4 Painting with the Maniac episodes in, and then 4 gameplay videos for the game too as well. And, you know, having said that, you can see what's in front of us. We have Ben. He's in Romero mode right now because he's black and white. Now, you can go ahead and you can go and look up the rules and everything online at the Cool Mini or Not website and so forth, or even YouTube videos, because there's a lot of videos out. Even though the game is very new, people have been pushing videos and images about this game all over the internet. So check that out if you're not sure what I mean by Romero mode. But anyhow, this here is the Romero mode. I've already painted him off camera, and on camera we're going to be painting the Zombicide mode, or the Survivor mode. In color, this is kind of like a grayscale, because you can see here, this is grayscale when he's in Romero mode. So what I went and did is I painted him in Romero mode with grayscale. So you can see here, let me just get it in focus. It's a little better. Hand's a little dirty. But anyhow, you can see here, like the grayscale, I got all done onto him. I really like the way these turned out. And primarily the survivors are in the house, like based off of the movie in the 60s. I think it was in the 60s. I can't remember. My brain is not functioning right now. But anyhow, so this is what this game is based off of. So this is the black and white version of Ben. He's one of the main characters in the movie, and you can see his base is really cool because I developed a method. Now, I looked online, I couldn't find any way of doing this, so I kind of developed my own. That they could be other people have done this in the past, but you're going to see how I make this here method of the floorboards, because you can see here we're going to do it to him, and this is just a plain flat even surface, but it's going to be very easy to do. When we get to that part, you'll see, oh, that's interesting. And that's the color of the miniature. I already based them out in just a white. And in black and white mode, the Romero mode, our bases are in gray. So we're not going to concentrate on him. I did like an explanation for comments online on Facebook and everything how to do this. So if you're a member of Facebook, you can go to Zombicide. You can ask to join the group. One of the Zombicide things I probably posted in that explaining this. But if you want to know more detail about how to paint them like this, you can just contact us at BoardGameManiacs@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to explain the process how to get this monochrome look. But today we are concentrating on Ben in color. So you're saying, but what am I going to go off of? Well, again, you can find pictures online, but I'm going off of the card specifically because in this Zombicide Survivor mode, it's just a double-sided card, and this one is in color. So this is what we're going to try to achieve today, is very similar to what colors Ben is wearing right here by using this miniature. So let's get ready to start painting with the Maniac. The first step that we're going to is we're going to paint Ben's skin and probably his shoes. So you can see here, he is based out in white, and because the reason why I based him out in white is because I'm going to be using contrast paint. There's a little bit of sprue damage, I guess, when taking them at the molds or cutting them off when they did manufacture this. This is on the hiccups. The manufacturing end. So, all in all, you know, he's got some seams going down his leg and his feet, but I'm not too worried about that. You can spend time and clean up all the seams if you like. Yeah, I'm just painting him like he is. So for the skin, we're going to use contrast paint by Citadel, and we are going to be using Gore Grunta Fur. Now, I caution anybody who is going to be using any contrast paint, well, even just any paint, you want to give it a good shake first off. And the reason why is because all the particles can settle at the bottom of it, so you're not going to get the proper coverage that you need or the proper vibrancy of the color. You can hear me shaking it here. All right. So that's why, you know, you just want to be careful with that. Hopefully I'm not going to get my big head in the way. You can see this here is my pot holder that I've created to hold so it don't spill. All this is, let's take that out. All this is like a cardboard tubing and a piece of wood. I hot glued it and I sat it down so that when I put my paints in, it can hit and everything, but it's not going to spill. Hopefully it's not going to spill. So anyhow, let's move this off to the side, bring Ben back in here, and let's paint his skin. Now, one thing that I notice with contrast paint, I'm not an expert painter by no means. I'm still learning as I go along. But what I've noticed about painting with the contrast paint is when you do paint, what happens is that you put one layer down, and if you don't leave it dry complete and you go to put another layer down in contrast paint, it starts lifting off the previous layer. So you want to, if you're going to do more than one coat of the contrast paint, which you shouldn't have to do, but if by chance you do have to, you want to make sure it's thoroughly dry before painting it. So let's start off here with Ben's skin first. I'm going to see if my big head's in the way here. No, you should be okay. Sorry, everybody. My eyes are kind of bad, so I'm using a little bit of a jewelry magnifying glass just to help out at first. So we're going to do Ben's skin first, and if we go on the here, it's not a big deal. The reason why is because I'm going to be painting that with a black contrast paint. So because it's going to be a black contrast paint, then the black is definitely going to cover over the brown. But you want to be careful that you don't get it on other parts of the miniature, like the clothing and that, with this contrast paint, especially if you're going to be going with a lighter version on top for like the contrast stuff. Because if you do that, the problem with this is that a lighter color contrast paint that you put on it, it's going to have an issue where it's not going to cover the darker color. So when I use contrast paints, aside from the skin, like I like painting the skin first, this is just my own methodology, but when using contrast paint is I like to go with all of the lighter colors and working to the darker spectrum colors, because then if I make any mistakes with the lighter colors, I can cover it up with the darker colors. So that's kind of what it is with Ben. I'm just going to clean up a little bit. You can see the pulling a bit. I'm going to clean my brush off with a little bit of water, and then I'm just going to kind of dab where I want to pick up some of the pooling. And once this is dry, we'll be back. I'm going to paint his hands too and his shoes. You don't have to see that on camera because it's pretty simple to do. You just have to be careful what you're doing. There's no special trick. So I'll be back after that is all dry. Now that the contrast paint is dry, I just used the one coat. I didn't clean up a lot of the, you can see there, I want this to be kind of very shaded because I'm going for not so much a super bright look, but more of like a toned down look, because just to kind of convey the idea that it's a very sad time and kind of give that little bit of feeling of dread. And you know, it's a sad time, it's dark, it's dreary because of the zombie apocalypse, right? So that's why I did that. But anyhow, the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to paint Ben's shirt. Now his shirt in the picture is a pink color, and we're going to try to duplicate that. And he has a little right here, it's a white shirt, undershirt, and we're going to leave that white. We're not going to touch that because once we put a wash on it, it's going to tone that down a bit. But right now we're going to try to paint his shirt. And again, with the lighter color, because we're trying to go from light to dark, aside from the skin, that is. So I'm going to put Ben aside. We got a cup here, and we're going to mix some colors up here. And the way we're going to mix this up is I got a dropper and give the contrast. We're going to use contrast paint again, and we're taking Apothecary White Citadel, and we're going to take a couple of drops and put it into our mixing cup. You can probably get like a pink color, but I don't have it, so I'm going to make my own. So a couple of drops here of the gray, Apothecary White I should say, not the gray. Clean my dropper out. Make sure it's all nice and clean, because I made that mistake before that I kind of cross-contaminated, is a way to say it, I guess, for the paint, and because of that it didn't turn out that great. It kind of took my contrast paint pot and turned it a lot of a different color than what it was, and that was bad. Anyhow, I'm rambling. I'm going to use some technical contrast medium now. This is meant just for contrast paint. And what we're going to do is just give it a drop or two in here. 2, 3, just like that. And now I just got to find my red color and I'll be back. Sorry about that, everybody. I thought I had the proper red, but I didn't. We are going to be using contrast Blood Angel Red. And again, this is more subtle contrast line, and shaking it up super great. So again, we put in the Apothecary White, and we put a couple of drops in of the technical contrast medium. Now we're gonna do some red. Now, because I want this to be a pinkish color, so more pink than red, we're only gonna put a couple of drops of red in and mix it and see what happens. So 1, 2. We'll try the 2 first. See how that looks. Now remember, it is contrast, so it's going to show the white primer through. So that is actually not a bad color. So I'm going to keep with this color here for his shirt. So I really like that. So let's go on and start painting Ben's shirt. And away we go. So again, yeah, Ben's collar you can see here and everything that we're going to be painting. Now, I'm not going to try to paint this like super even coverage onto Ben's shirt, and the reason why is, you know, it's a zombie apocalypse. He's going to be a little bit on the dirty side from, you know, fending off all of the zombies and everything. So yeah, like it's maybe a little splotchy, but when I put the wash on too as well, it's going to really bring out all of the nice detail that they got in this miniature. So again, just carefully going, painting Ben's shirt. You know, again, like I said, where I did the skin color first, that is dark, because I like doing the skin color on the miniatures first. When I'm painting this pink color on, and if I get it on the skin, you're not really going to be able to tell, because the skin color that I used is a lot darker than what this pinkish color is. So I'm not going to bore you again by you watching while I paint Ben's shirt. I'm just going to finish painting it, and I'll be back after try and show you what it looks like in the end. But you can see here that the white is showing through, so it is making it like, that's really great about the contrast paint color, because I really enjoy that, and I find it super easy to paint with them. So I'll be back shortly. His shirt is all dry now, and you can see that it is a reddish pink. It's really showing through, and you can see all of the white that is kind of popping through to give the automatic highlights, just like all of the other contrast paints do, which is cool. So the next thing we are going to paint is we're going to paint like the stock of the gun and the wood accents of this Winchester, the 3030 Winchester. And we are going to be using Agro Stones. It's another Citadel contrast paint. For the most part, I guess you can say that we're going to be using primarily contrast paints onto these minis, but with a little bit of different other paints included, like for the silver and that. I love contrast paints, so I'm going to try to do as much as I can with the contrast paint. So we're going to do the dunes now. Stock of the gun. And one thing I want to mention too about the contrast paint is it's always important to keep your paintbrush wet. And when I say by wet, I mean like your contrast paint always onto it, because if you start doing it and there's not a lot onto the brush, you're going to end up start lifting off the paint or the contrast I already put onto it, and it can get a little messy. You can cover up a lot of stuff though with if you're making any mistakes, because when you put in washes and that, it will tie everything together, which is cool. I like that look. Sometimes, you know, if you're kind of got a mistake, you can fix it up easily enough. But you just, you know, you got to be a little careful and be patient and, you know, take your time when you're painting. Just try to get everything the way that you want it to go. So yeah, just that little wood accent there. This is going to be metal, and that's going to be metal, and metal there. So that's pretty much it with that color. Now, I know it's kind of light looking, but when we add the shade to it, it's going to start showing up more. Like, it's going to darken it down some more here. So yeah, I'm not going to push this anymore like this. So we're going to leave this dry. And then when we come back, we are going to go on to the next color. And I think we're going to be doing his pants next. While the gun, we did the stock of the gun, and it's almost dry. We're going to do the pants now because I'm not going anywhere near the stock of the gun, so we can safely paint the pants. And my go-to gray color that I like using, because it's a gray into the picture, is Balsamican Gray. And this here, I really, really like this gray because it just got the right amount of pigment into it so that it's going to capture exactly where I need it. And it's going to leave the white show through for the automatic highlight. So let's start doing that to Ben's pants here. And again, as I said before, I am working from the darkest to the lightest to the darkest because of the contrast paint. And I'm always making sure I got a healthy portion on my brush of the contrast paint. Especially with this gray, like it works great. It settles exactly where you want it to. And get me on camera a little bit more. It settles where you want it to. It pulls, like, I really, really like the look of this gray. I use it a lot. I use it a lot in my other paintings that I've done. And, you know, you can use this when you're trying to get the grayscale done too as well, if you wish to, or you can make your own custom washes. It's up to you. But, you know, it is what it is, and that's just the way it is. When I say it is what it is what it is with the paint, because the paint is awesome. Like, I love the contrast line that Citadel has put out. I didn't paint with a ton of paint before. Different types of paint, I should say. For miniatures, I kind of stick with one. But, you know, I like that. And whoever's watching, if you want to comment down below, let me know, what is your go-to paint that you use for your miniatures? Is it primarily Citadel, or do you do Army Painter? Do you use Vallejo? Like, totally, it's totally to your discretion and what you feel comfortable with. And I've tried, like I said, not a whole lot of different paint, but I did try some different paints just to see, you know, if I'm missing anything. And once I tried this contrast paint, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to use that. So I like where this is kind of pooling. It's a little dirty. It looks a little dirty. I'm going around the miniature to make sure. You know, one thing, I'm not dipping in my paintbrush to get a little darker, to get more onto it, because I'm just doing the belt loops. So again, I'm just going, I hope my big head's not in the way. So I'm just doing the belt loops. Now we are going to be painting the belt black. So when we do the painting of the belt loop, the belt, I should say, we're going to try to avoid the belt loops as much as possible so that it kind of maintains itself. Oh, there's another one that I missed. Right there. I think that's all the belt loops that I have to worry about. Now, I've also painted like the gun before with the gray, and it turned out good, but I want the gun to be kind of like a bling bling gun. So I'm going to use a different color paint for that, which we're going to do next. It's not going to be contrast paint. We're actually going to be using, what color am I going to use? Oh yes, the Iron Breaker, I think is, yeah, the Iron Breakers we're going to do. So hold on for that. I'll wait till the pants are dry and we'll paint the gun. We're on to the next step now. It's dry enough, and you can see where it is looking a little grimy, which is awesome. I want the grime. I'm talking about his pants. So now we're gonna paint the 3030 Winchester, the metal details on the gun, and I'm just gonna go with all of a silver. And like I said before, we're doing iron breaker. I got it in my wet palette. I got a little bit of water onto it, mixed in with it, I should say, just to water it down slightly. And it just makes it flow a little easier in my experiences, which is very little. So yep, just painting away. Gotta be careful I don't get it on Ben's finger. So you do have to be a little careful with this. And just painting away very carefully, and I'm whispering. Like Steve Urkel, don't talk to me when I'm pouring. If that's kind of aging myself there. But Family Ties, I think it is, or Family Matters, or something like that. Because this is a paint, it is going over the contrast paint, I should say. It's going over that very easily. So yeah, just again, I'm keeping my brush wet with the paint, but not enough that it's getting blobby and I'm depositing it way too much onto it. Blobby? What do you say about Blobby? I don't know. Like, Blobby's my friend. Don't talk about Blobby. Either case. Yeah, here we go. Just trying to be careful not to get on Ben's clothing or his hands or anything. I want to try to keep it as neat as possible with this metal. Very easy. It's easy, but, you know, at the same time, it's not easy. If that makes any sense. And I'm not even on camera again. Jeez, like, come on. Stay on camera. Stay on point. His gun is a little warped there. What I could have done, if you're not familiar, but if you have any plastic miniatures that have a little bit of warpage going on like the gun, you can always just take a heat gun, or actually even a little bit more non-destructive, put it in some really, really warm water, leave it sit for a couple of minutes, take it out and bend and hold to straighten it, and it will end up straightening it. I learned that trick from YouTube. I can't remember who it was that had the problem with that, but I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I tried it and it worked fabulous. So yeah, just so everybody's aware. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave this dry. We'll be back, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the last color before we go with the wash, and that is going to be Black Templar. It's another contrast paint. The gun is all done, and I also put a little bit of the metal paint onto the buckle of Ben's belt, just slightly, just a little bit. And now we are going to be using Black Templar, the contrast paint by Citadel, and we're going to do his hair and his belt. And this stuff here, this Black Templar, you have to make sure you really shake this up well, because all of the particles will end up staying at the bottom if not. And by doing that, what happens with this, I'm just trying to, oh, he just spilled some paint on me. Oh well, got my paint clothes on, so be it. But anyhow, what happens is that, just like all the other contrast paint, the molecules, the particles of the color will settle on the bottom of it, but I noticed with the Black Templar, it settles really, like you have to shake it up really good because it will settle. So let's do his belt first, shall we? So, dipping in some of this. So again, very careful, because if this black gets anywhere else, it's just going to ruin the other paint job that you did. And I'm going over the silver part with this Black Templar because it's kind of gonna treat the silver as a wash for the buckle on his belt. Because the silver is like a more of a opaque paint than a translucent black paint contrast, so because of that it is going to show through. And remember, because where we painted the belt loops, we have to make sure that we try to very, very carefully paint around the belt loops, as hopefully you can see there. And my big head's not in the way. Since my eyesight is getting bad with age, you know, I have to use like the jewelry magnifying glass headset, I guess, sometimes to do painting because of my eyesight. So you can see there, I am very carefully just trying to avoid the belt loops and his pants and the pink shirt too as well, as carefully as possible. And I'm not overly saturating the brush. I'm still keeping it wet, but I'm not like saturating it to create puddles that will end up running down onto the pants, because that can be a bad thing. So yeah, there's his belt. Now I don't think I missed any spots. Oh, I did. I missed one spot. You can see right there. So come on, get in there. There we go. So now we're going to paint Ben's hair. And again, I'm not oversaturating the brush because I don't want it to fall down onto the skin tone. But at the same time, I want it to have a good amount of coverage. So going around his ears. And I noticed too with not just the Black Templar, but the contrast paint in general, when I start painting the miniature with it, like fresh contrast paint on the tip of my brush, I always start painting the darkest area that I want for the contrast first, and then when I move up and there's less paint onto my paintbrush, it kind of gets a little lighter, so it kind of helps with the transitioning with the paint. So again, I'm not dipping any more contrast paint into the brush right now, but I am trying to work a little bit fast, because where I'm at the top, it's less contrast paint, so the white will end up showing through just a little bit more on the top because of the highlights from the white being the primary color underneath it. And I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything on Ben's hat, his hair. He's not wearing a hat. Come on, get with the program. I mean, talking about me. And you can paint the eyes and everything else, but you know what? They're so small, the miniatures. I'm not worried too much about painting the eyes or anything. You can go ahead, you go nuts and, you know, put as much detail on it as you want. But that is Ben's hair and his belt with the black. I'm very happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave this completely dry. We'll be back, because then what we're going to attack is the wash. We're going to get the miniature completely done and at the point where we're so happy with it, so that when we start doing this, we don't have to concentrate on the base and nothing else. So we'll be back after this is all dry so we can throw on a wash. Now that the Black Templar contrast paint is dry, we are going to go on to doing the wash. So I just got a cup that I use a lot for when I'm doing my washes, if you can't tell there. And we're going to be using some Agrax Earth Shade, but it's going to be watered down. And the ratio, I'm not 100% sure, maybe like 1:1, because I don't want it to be super dirty, or 2:1 I should say. So we're going to put some water in it first, and this is just my water from cleaning my brushes. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 drops of water. You know, my Agrax Earth Shade, giving it a good shake. And we're going to do like 7 drops and see what that looks like of the Agrax Earth Shade. That's why the dropper comes in handy for this, so it helps you mix your ratios accurately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2-to-1 mixture. We're going to see what that looks like. I want to say 2-to-1. It's 2 parts water to 1 part Agrax Earth Shade. So let's mix this up here. Let's see what it looks like. So let's move Ben out of the way just for the time being. So what I like to do is I take it and I'll brush it up onto the side. And you can see it is very translucent still. So that's what I want. I don't want it to be like overpoweringly dirty. And I'm just going to take this now and go over everything on Ben. Like his pants, his shirt, his undershirt, his face, his hair, you name it. It's going completely onto him. Again, you can see it's not creating like a really super dirty look. It's changing the tone by muting it slightly. When I say muting, it's kind of just toning down the colors. I don't want to overbrush it too much because this paint, sometimes I notice with the washes, the Citadel contrast paint, when you put the water onto it and so on, what happens to it is that it starts lifting off the contrast paint because it is water soluble. So yeah, I'm just kind of putting it here and, you know, being very cautious with it and stippling on in just some certain parts to try to get a little bit darker, like the folds of his arms and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much it. Kind of making a little bit of a mess, but oh well. And yeah, we're going to touch upon his face a little bit more. There we go. And his hands. There. So we're going to leave this dry. We'll be back with the next step, which is we're going to be starting the base. Now that the wash is all dry, you can notice that we have like just subtle darkness on the pants and the folds and everything, but it's not overpowering that makes them look completely filthy or really dark. So again, by watering down the Agrax Earth Shade and placing it onto them, it works pretty good. Oh, I scratched them right there. I'll fix that, no big deal. But show must go on. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the base. And the base that we're going to create, which I've already showed, is this exact thing. Now, I know that he's in grayscale or monochromatic. I wanted to add a little bit of color to it, so I put a little bit of brown into this. We're going to create the same thing, but onto the colored version. And you can see these indents are actually from the floorboard is created by using a specific tool, which I'm going to show you now. Now, before I do the tool, I just want to mention you that I am not sponsored by anybody to talk about the materials or the paints or anything that is being used into these videos, so just be aware of that. So the tool we're going to use, it's a wood burner tool. You can see there I put the fine tip onto it, and it's really hot right now because I plugged it in. It's a 10 volt JW, and it has a little button here that you can change the temperature settings, but I got it up on the highest because we're going to be using this to melt the plastic base. Now, if you're wondering what the name of this tool is, it's right there. And my wife purchased, she does crafting stuff too as well. She has her own website. Check it out if you want to see and purchase some crafting stuff like some gloves or hats or mitts or blankets or dresses or what have you. And it's thecraftyprints.com. So thecraftyprints.com. And you can go check out her stuff too as well. If you do, you know, send her a message, say that you watched this video and you wanted to say hi. So we're going to do Ben's now. And we got the wood burning tool. Now, before we do this, you are melting plastic, so it is good. Excuse me. I didn't even start melting it. You are going to be melting plastic. And I can't even talk right. You want to wear a mask. Good thing where I'm coughing like this on camera and talking about melting plastic. Very healthy. But anyhow, you want to wear a mask and or into a really well ventilated area, and you can have some a fan blowing or what have you. So just be aware of that. So we're just going to sculpt out a wooden floor design into the base by using this tip. And I always like starting in the middle, and I'm not pushing down hard, I'm just gently gliding across it that you'll see here, and I'm starting roughly in the middle here. And one thing you want to do is be very careful that you don't touch the mini itself, because you can, as you can see, that is burnt in there really good, and you don't want to burn the miniature itself. So again, I'm just drawing the floorboards out. I'm not making these all even. It is like a farmhouse, so they may have like really rustic floors, but I'm going off of the pictures that are on the game board itself for the floorboard stuff. So now we're going to turn it around this way and continue. Don't have to be even. Now, what you can do too as well is you can draw with a marker or a pencil or something so that you can be accurate, but yeah, I'm not. I'm just doing it the way this is. Just like that. So after I did that, now I'm going to put some separations into the floor from where they would go together. And there's no real specific pattern for this. I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it, and I'm just going off of whatever I think is okay or looks good. And I just keep flipping it around just to draw the lines. And you can see the smoke coming off because it is melting the plastic. So again, you want to, you know, work in a ventilated area or with a fan or a mask. My area is pretty well ventilated, so I don't have to worry about it too much. And after you draw the lines into it, you want to give some wood grain design. So all I do is I start dabbing with this gently, like for some, you can see, some spots. And then just, you know, drawing some squiggly lines. Ben's kind of in the way there, but you can see there, like the squiggly lines and some dots. It's nothing too technical or anything. It's going to give that like old floorboard feel to it, or look to it, I should say. You can be, like I said, accurate as you want, or you can just freehand it and eyeball it like I'm doing here. Totally up to you. But, you know, just, again, be very careful with doing this, that you don't burn yourself or the miniature, because you don't want that. So that's it. That is how we create the floorboard by using the burner. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just get some sandpaper. I'm not going to record this. And rough it up. You don't have to rough or smoothen this out a bit. Some of the miniatures that I did, I left them rough. Some of them I smoothed them out a bit. Actually, I'm not even going to say in this one now. I like the look and the feel of this, or I can keep it like that, and we're just going to keep pushing forward. Since we have all of the floorboard now sculpted out, we're going to paint it. And the way I painted mine is I'm using XV88 for the base of it. And it's in my wet palette. It's watered down just slightly. And we're just going to paint it and make sure that we get in all the little spots as much as possible so we don't have much showing through the white. As you can see here, pretty simple. But I'm using a small brush just so I don't get it onto their feet or their shoes that I've already painted previously. Now, one thing I want to say too as well is from where I sculpted it with the wood burner tool, you can do the sculpting with the wood burner tool before you even start painting the miniature, just to have it finished. I wanted to show it on camera, and I didn't want that to be the first thing that I showed, was doing the base, the floorboard base. I didn't want to do that. So that's why I did it that way. So again, yeah, just painting this and leaving it dry. So once this is done, painted, and it's dry, I'll be back and I'll show you the next step that we're going to do. From this point, it's going to be pretty easy now. Now that the XV88 base is painted and dry, you can see there's a couple of white spots there, but we're going to fix that up too as well. The next thing we're going to do is throw an undiluted Agrax Earthshade wash over the the entire base, not the miniature, just the base. And when I say undiluted, we're not washing it down, we're not doing anything. It's just going to go on like it is, and pretty heavy. Trying to avoid the feet as much as we can, just so we don't get the Agrax Earth shade onto it. So you can see there, I'm putting the wash onto it like so, and it's getting in all the details and all that we sculpted out with the wood burning. And now we're going to leave this dry, and when it comes back, when it's dry, we'll be back and we'll start dry brushing the color onto it. The colors, there's 2 colors that we're going to do for highlighting on it. Now that the wash is done onto the base, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start the highlighting, and we are going to do the first layer of highlighting using Xandri dust. Now I'm taking this directly at the pot because it is a highlighting coat, and the way I'm highlighting it is just dry brush. That's why I'm taking it directly at the pot. So just give it a quick shake there and place it there, and we're ready to do some highlighting. So I'm going to take my big wide brush right here. It's not really a highlight brush, but I like highlighting with this. And got some Xandri dust on there, and I'm just kind of cleaning off the excess. And we're just going to gently brush over the base. You can see it popping already. Popping, I mean like the texture and everything is just jumping out more and more. And again, we're being mindful not to get the feet of the miniature because we really don't want to do that. So just like that, a little bit extra highlighting here. Just like so. So it's kind of like a heavy bit of highlight that we put on it with the Xandri dust. And that's pretty much it for the first coat. So now we're going to go on to the second coat, which is going to be a different color, a separate layer of color. The final layer that we're going to is going to be another dry brush layer, and we're just going to put less paint onto our brush and go over top of this again. And we are going to be using Flayed One Flesh by Citadel again. It's a layer paint, just kind of giving a little bit of a quick shake there. And the reason why I did this, because it is still kind of in the brown realm for the base, but it's more of a white, opaque look to it. So it's going to have it, but with the shade that we put on there, it's still going to help with like the look of almost black and white. So again, we're just gently brushing over on top of what we did already. So you might not be able to see too much of it, but again, you want to only do a little bit at a time, slowly building up this layer because you don't want it to be too overpowering. So again, you just getting the coat onto it very easily. So now you can see that it's really starting to show up even more, like all the indents that we put onto the base and so forth. And getting right around the rim, because I want that to stand out, like the edging of the rim. Just like so. I'm going to finish just gently dry brushing this, and I'll be back, and we're going to paint the rim of it, and he's going to be pretty much finished except for the ceiling part. Before I do the rim, I did forget that I used one more color onto the base, and this is going to be the third dry brush highlight color, and we are going to be using Corax White. Now this here is going to be very, very little on your brush. You don't want to overpower this at all, but again, you want to make sure your brush has a good ample amount onto it, but to the point that you don't have much onto it. So we're going to do just the rim first. So you can see there, I'm gently running over, and you can see that it is starting to pop out a little bit more, and it's starting to give more of that kind of black and white feel, but having a little bit of color. So now we're just going to gently brush over this too as well. And for the most part, I'm trying to go just the one direction from left to right onto it, not up and down, but because I don't want to fill in the little gaps. So that's pretty much, that's showing up definitely for the black and white. Now, we're just going to paint the rim part here, and I just got to find my paint, so I'll be back shortly for that. It's going to be a gray color. For the rim of the base, I did all of the other miniatures that are in zombie mode or zombicide mode with that color gray. It's an Essen gray. Yeah, it's right there. Essen gray. So it's just very simple, just painting around the base. And we just use whatever size brush you want, really. I'm just going with this brush. Dabbing this on to get the color on it. Just brushing away. So once this is all dry, I'll be back for our closing for this episode. I'm not even on camera. There you go, you can see it. So I gotta wait till this is dry and we'll be back just to close out this video. Well, there you have it, Board Game Maniacs. That is Ben from Cool Mini or Not, The Walking Dead, the Zombicide edition. I didn't fix a scratch there, but I'll get it. And it's pretty much all done with contrast paint, like I said, except for the metal for the gun and the base. But other than that, it was all done. And if we compare it, number one, to the black and white version of Ben, such a big contrast. I painted the base rim of the black and white version black, and then the gray for the Zombicide survival mode. So that is it. And let's compare to the card quickly, just see how well we did. It's a little shiny there because the lights are on. But you can see it is very close. Like, that's definitely passable. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I hope you enjoyed this. And it's inspiring you to paint your Night of the Living Dead miniatures from the game. If so, I would love to see what you painted, so you can either reach us on Facebook, so facebook.com/BoardGameManiacs, or we're also on Instagram, BoardGameManiacs, or you can just simply email us the pictures at boardgamemaniacs@gmail.com. And, you know, also too as well for this video, comment down below, let me know what you thought about the painting techniques that I used. And if you use different painting techniques, what you did and so on, because I'm definitely interested into it. We're trying to network to grow the community even more, to help share special skills and even just painting skills and everything else to what we do, so that when we play games, we got really great looking miniatures to play the games. And that's it. So until next time, Board Game Maniacs, have some fun, paint some miniatures, watch some Painting with the Maniac episodes. But most importantly of all, that is, be a maniac! That's right, Ben. You got it right. So until next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to keep up to date with Board Game Maniacs, click on the like and subscribe button to be notified when more videos come available. If you want to become an official sponsor of Board Game Maniacs, go to patreon.com/BoardGameManiacs. Or you can go to streamlabs.com/BoardGameManiacs1. That's right, and you can donate to help keep the lights on, keep food in our bellies, and play more games. We'll purchase more games, more equipment to make Board Game Maniacs evolve and get bigger and larger because of you, the viewers. I thank you from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head for all of your support. And until next time, Board Game Maniacs, be a maniac.